Hi, welcome to my unit review of the Dark Knight. In this video I'm going to talk about his basic role in your formation, his capabilities, his strengths and weaknesses, his abilities and his stats. Overall, I would always say the Dark Knight is a frontliner. His key feature is he can't be critically hit, his armor and resistance is quite high, and he has skills to heal himself, shake off debuffs, making him a very solid choice for your front slots. Damage-wise, he is in the middle field. It's not low, but it's also not insanely high either. His physical damage skills are harder to apply in a more satisfying way compared to the stress damage skills. So let's get into the ability tree to understand his skills a little bit better. The Heartless Slash attacks the first 3 slots and has 60% of the attack value. This is a quite low base value, and he adds up 40% of his armor and resistance sum. This can be upgraded to a higher base damage or a higher percentage of the Dark Knight's armor and resistance. Overall, this is a very nice skill with a lot of scaling potential, but without scaling, the skill is pretty lackluster. At least it feels like that. If you're up for a quick fix, use the Edge of the Abyss, increasing the base damage percentile, which makes the skill a lot more useful if you don't prepare yourself with more armor and resistance. If you want to stack up armor and resistance deeper or use the stacking mechanic of the skill a little bit more thorough, use Death Comes for Everyone. I really like this game's names of skills. Next up is the Hollow Stair. It is a stress attack dealing more damage for each buff and debuff on the enemy target. This is particularly nasty because buffs and debuffs apply a lot more often in the game than you can increase your armor or resistance, and it is upgradable to a pretty nasty base damage but losing its additional bonus, or you can just increase the bonus. Overall, the skill is pretty solid, very straightforward, always good to use due to its high base percentage scaling. And believe me, once you have some buffs or debuffs on the enemy target, it is very, very impactful. Next up, the Dark Tithe. It removes all debuffs from the Dark Knight and making Iratus gain mana and wrath. You can upgrade that to more wrath or more mana, a very straightforward skill, making it pretty hard to make debuffs stick on the Dark Knight. There's not much to talk about it. It's easy to understand, it is very useful. Futile Hopes is much more complicated and much more satisfying though as well. It is a stance which triggers a counter attack whenever an enemy receives a buff. It deals 60% of the Dark Knight's dread as stress damage and is key to so many nasty combos you can pull off. First off, you can punish the enemies if they buff themselves. That's the most straightforward use, but it's not really the most useful one. If you combo that up with a Lost Soul, whose skills actually buff the enemies actively, you can do things like smack him with Inspire Heroics and instantly trigger a counter attack with a follow-up attack with Futile Hopes. Pretty nasty, considering that the Lost Soul also has this as a AoE attack. This actually will trigger 4 times as well, making really nice chain attacks. It can be upgraded to a trigger on debuffs with a higher percentage as well, making it a very, very good combo with the Wraith's skills here, because they are debuffing. Also, the upgraded ultimate of the Wraith has even a evasion debuff on it, making it also apply as an AoE. Same goes for the Banshee's Crescendo or Accelerando or whatever her skills are called. Basically every AoE debuff turns into a nightmarish combo with this thing. It can be of course upgraded in the buff direction as well. This is personally my favorite skill of the Dark Knight, because he has so much combo potential while just being a rock in front of your formation. It's a very lovely skill. Work around it, enjoy it, and it's really a fun mechanic. Next up is Unfeeling Aggression, a straightforward skill dealing damage to 2 targets chosen target and enemy behind that, with 80% scaling and a nasty 200% crit. Look at this, the base damage is higher, but considering that we're not getting any bonus damage, it will be still lower damage per target, but it's a 2-target attack, making the Dark Knight move forward, making it impossible to pin him down in the back line. That's the most basic use of this skill. You can also use this skill more often if you use units like the Shade or other minions which shuffle up your formation a lot more. It's pretty strong considering it attacks 2 targets, and it can be upgraded to have a buff-debuff bonus mechanic as well, or adding up a armor and resistance percentage as well. So yeah, this skill synergizes very well in the whole line of skills that we saw before, making him always present in the front line. That's the basic use of that skill. I don't think it's pretty useful to utilize the skill more actively. I consider it more as a utility to guarantee the Dark Knight gets his frontline presence. Last skill is the Abyssal Hunger, making all enemies lose 12 vigor, healing the Dark Knight for the same amount. I want to put your attention to the phrasing of all enemies lose vigor, which goes past the resistance because it's no magical damage. It also ignores wards, making it a flat damage skill and a flat healing skill as well. So you can upgrade that to a single target skill, making it a 35 vigor heal, or upgrade the AoE component. Overall, a very solid skill, increasing the survivability of an already very tanky unit even more. Keep in mind the Wrath cost of 60 is pretty high, so to ensure his survivability, make sure that your formation either generates enough Wrath, or you have a solid Wrath management to ensure that you don't end up with no Wrath. You need it. So, next up, let's go into the stats table. The most bonus points can be put into armor and resistance, with 10 points each. That's pretty much. He will end up with values around 20, which is an insane damage reduction, because this applies, if I understand it correctly, 1-to-1. So, secondary skills or medium field skills are Attack and Dread, which you can increase 7 times. Next up comes the Accuracy with 6 times, followed by Luck, Evasion, and Vigor with only 5 times. So medium skills are Vigor, Luck, and Evasion. Low skills are only the Initiative. So, sums up to a pretty solid, tanky choice of stats. You can upgrade the damage capabilities quite high as well, but it'll take time. I would overall say the armor and resistance points are very worth the effort, but past that I'll leave it to the player's choice of playing style, how to distribute your points. I also happen to have the unit's special item, the Heart of Emptiness, giving the Dark Knight the ability to gain mana and wrath whenever he takes damage, polishing the tank function even more. I hope this video gave you a little overview about his strengths and weaknesses. Overall, I would say a good frontliner, relying more on stress than on physical damage. If you want to put him into a physical damage role, be sure to combo him up with something like the Skeleton, or put enough points into armor and resistance to give the abilities of the Dark Knight enough smack to beat the enemy armors. Because the downsides about the Dark Knights is he has no buffs for the team, he has no debuffs for the enemies, he's mainly damage and tankiness, and that's it. So overall, you have to have a team behind him which overcomes these problems for him, or he's gonna fall flat against every problem that resolves around high resistances or buffs and debuffs. Or, well, much more buffs on the enemy team. Debuffs he can remove. Okay, so Feel free to drop me comments down below if there are any questions open or things you want to talk about. I am eager to talk. I would also wildly appreciate any support on this video in form of likes, shares, or even subscriptions to my channel. It would mean a lot to me. But I sure don't mind if you don't. The most important part is you enjoyed the video, and I hope you'll check on the next one as well. Well, if not, have a nice day and see you next time. Bye-bye.